Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Design Cuts live session on this fine Thursday. And I am thrilled to welcome back our very good friend and the very talented Mr. Ian Barnard. How are you, Ian?
Well, very good, very good. Thank you for having me on again.
I don't know what time this is. 20th? We've done a few of these now.
It's been quite a lot, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Ian, what are you going to be teaching the wonderful design cutters today?
Okay, today I'm going to be going through the process of using my chalk brushes to create a Happy St. George's Day lettering piece.
Which is tomorrow, is that right?
It's tomorrow, 23rd.
Yep.
So celebration to old St. George. So hopefully I will use a few of the brushes. I'll show you a few techniques, have a bit of 3D, have a bit of beveled type. And so hopefully it'll be useful for you and hopefully it'll be clear. I'm going to be rushing quite quickly through this because there's quite a lot to cover in the hour we've got. But if you've got any questions, do ask them and I'll try and Tom will sort of ask me as I'm going through and getting stuck in. So
amazing. Yeah, well, I will try and keep the interruptions down to a minimum, hard as I find that sometimes. And without further ado, over to you.
So just starting off with a plain chalkboard, which come with the chalk brushes. So this is one of my favorites. Got a slight blue tinge to it. I've already set up some grid and letter builder templates. So this is more going to be focused on the chalk brushes rather than grid and letter builder. But that's roughly what we're going to be using today to put my design on. I did do some designing on my sketchpad, but I can't actually remember where I put that. So I would love to show you, but it wasn't dissimilar from the finished thing, but just looks really sketchy and rubbish.
And Ian, did you share you updated the chalk back, I believe?
Yes, so I just only one brush, but what I've done, I realized that we had script brushes and all the different textured brushes, but we didn't have a pencil, chalk pencil. So something that actually one like this, and it's for doing finer detail. So it's one of the brushes I'm going to be using today. So if you bought the product, then it's been updated. It was updated yesterday, so you can go onto your account on DC and download it again. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, exactly right. And it's worth saying, if you haven't checked the spec out, it's one of the most popular brush sets we've ever sold. It's just enduringly popular, I think, because it's just the best chalk bag.
And actually, I found a sheet of just sort of the textures I went through. So I used actual real resources to make them. And I think that's probably why it works so well, is because they're actually from, proper chalk textures rather than just sort of trying to fake it, I suppose.
Yeah, we're obsessed with that authenticity. Do you remember we did the chalk pack with Joe Fallon? So it wasn't Procreate brushes, it was illustration. Yeah, she broke her scanner because it got so much chalk dust in it.
Oh dear. I tried to put coffee on mine to get a texture and then it ruined the whole thing. Because you know what coffee's like, it just gets in everything. Coffee grounds.
Your wife comes home, you're just pouring an espresso into your scanner.
She doesn't like coffee, and the fact that I'm messy with my coffee, just it's just having to clear up after me every day. Anyway,
so, we're using the chalk brushes though. Away you go.
Okay, so we're going to start with the word happy, so it's going to be happy. St. George's is going to be in the middle there, and day is going to be on the bit at the bottom. So we're going to start with happy. Let's create. I have got some in reserve in case I'll run out of time. So we're going to use the chalk pencil, and usually I'd go through and rough out the letters first, but I'm just going to draw them straight from using the grids, but just drawing them straight and then making them neat from there, just to save on time. So let's zoom in. So let's start, because I've already decided what I'm going to do treatment wise with the lettering. So in this case, for happy, it's going to be like an outlined lettering, like a white outline, and then it's going to have a bit of 3D thrown in. So I just go around. I'm just using the grids, if I can draw a straight line. So I'm just using them. And with this as well, is that try not to be too neat straight off the bat, because it's easier actually just to go quite quickly and then neaten it up afterwards, so you don't get hung up on one letter. Because what I found is sometimes I need to come back and correct a letter because it's not as heavy as some of the other letters. So what you're looking for consistency. So sometimes go through it all, roughly draw the letters, and then see where you need to tweak it. So I'm trying to keep a consistent weight of the pencil, because this is going to be an outline, but I'm not always that consistent. So I'm just going to quickly go through for you, doing my happy. And what the letter builder grids do is just help you to get up to the point where you can start adding the sort of personality to letters quicker, rather than spending ages trying to draw letters, then spend even longer doing them up. You can do the bit which I think is more fun, which is adding different things to the letters.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone watching live, I've had the privilege of seeing Ian work up close and personal. For example, when we were did a speaking gig together, and we got breakfast beforehand, and I just saw him knock up some lettering on his iPad, which was utterly fantastic and just spur of the moment. And yeah, continued to be boggled by the talent. I'm definitely not a natural letterer myself.
Yeah, but you are a natural artist, because you did amazing. I still remember that eye you did. You did a human eye, and it was just like, whoa, where did that come from, Tom? That was
I can draw eyes, and that's it. I don't know if anyone else watching is like that. They can draw one or two things okay, and then nothing else.
Okay, so I would go over that again and make sure that it's sort of quite bright, so the texture's over there, everything's fine. But for the sake of time, so don't rush go through things as quickly as I'm going today, just because of time restraints. But I'll just make sure that those lines are all even and not too bunched up, and make sure they're a little bit heavier. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to turn off the letter grids, because we don't need any more, because we've drawn the letters. And actually I can turn off the grid of that as well, because what we're going to do now is duplicate that. You're going to duplicate that word by swiping left on the layer and selecting duplicate. And with the bottom one of those two selected, we're just going to reduce the opacity down to maybe just where the word opacity ends. Doesn't really matter. But what we're going to do is get the arrow, and with uniform selected, and also actually turn on snapping and magnetic, so it keeps central, is we are just going to reduce the height of it, or reducing the height when it's in uniform will reduce everything. And we're just going to make it slightly smaller and bring it down so we can make it 3D. So what we do now is, once we're happy with that, we just press the arrow tool again to confirm that transformation. And then what we do is select, we create a new layer by pressing the plus icon on the layers panel. And now what we do is going to connect all of those. So we're going to connect this corner here to this bit down here throughout the whole of the word, so it creates the effect of 3D. And this is one of the quickest ways of doing it. So I quickly go around, just really going over the bits that are not inside the letter. So everything that's outside the letter, we're just joining up those edges. Anywhere that those edges sort of, where there's a corner, we just join those up. And even without doing anything else, it's already starting to look 3D. It'll look better once we turn off the back layer, but we're just going to go around drawing those in. There we go. So that's that layer below done with. We can now delete that if we want to. And what I'm going to do now is on that layer, I'm just going to fill in the area. Fill in those areas where it's 3D. Just going to make that white. And then once I've done that, I'm going to then make it fade off into the background a bit to give it a little bit of feel like it's popping out the page a bit more. So,
amazing. What I love about this is, as a technique, it feels really achievable.
Yeah, it's
you know, I mean, sometimes you see 3D lettering techniques and you almost can't get your head around it, even as you see someone doing it. Whereas this, I'm like, yeah, this feels like, you know, anyone watching could do this.
And what's weird is, like, back about like 10 years ago, I think like a lot of like word, I think it's this word was the issue, was like 3D wasn't really popular. It was just quite cheesy, but I think because of all like the word art stuff, it had, you know, not been a great look. But then I think the resurgence of like sign painting, where they do a lot of 3D work and it looks really good, then got transferred into sort of like the hand lettering sense, and it just looks good now. And I can't, I struggle to do a bit of lettering without any 3D in it now. It's just like my go-to sort of effect.
You reminded me of word art there. Was that in Word or PowerPoint or something?
Yeah, it was in Microsoft Word, like, where
the really shocking neon stuff.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not just 3D; it's 3D with like a really horrible gradient on it. Or
I always thought, why didn't they just consult proper designers? Like, no offense to Mr. or Mrs. Word Art who made that, but you would think there'd be a lot of designers out there, even back then, even back in the day when design was a bit more cheesy, who would kind of come up with something more elegant. Because I remember even at the time, designers were like, oh, my eyes.
Yeah, because it was like a rainbow with the 3D effects, with it like going in and out in different sizes. And like, it was just like every effect under the sun applied to one bit of text.
One bit of text, yeah.
And I think that, you know, whereas I suppose what we're doing now is using it in a bit more of a conservative way, and just, you know, you have the 3D and a little bit of an arch, and that's it. You know, you don't then apply a ton of other things to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're nearly there. Not the world's neatest color arena. Okay, so we've done that, and now what we're going to do is just going to using, because we've done that on a separate layer. What's really handy now is I'm going to select the eraser tool, and I'm going to select one called dust. And then what we can do is, because it's on a separate layer, this bit in here, we want to sort of fade from black to white. Turn it around a bit. Sorry, I'm writing on the side of my hand. We then don't have to worry about going over the lines to do it. So
that looks cool. And could you clarify what brush you're using right now?
Yeah, I'm using one called Dust. It's like lots of sort of speckly bits of chalk.
Perfect. So we've done the outline.
I don't expect everyone to follow along at the speed I'm doing, but, you know, just even if it's just trying while we're on the call, like just a, you know, even a letter in the style sort of thing.
Yeah.
So now, just sort of...
Ian, just to kind of get up to speed. So you did, you laid out the layout. Then
pre-laid out the layout. So sorry about not having that in the thing. But
and then you had letter builder. Then you did basic outlines. Then you went over the outlines to fill them in and make them bolder. You duplicated that, moved it below, and shrunk it. You connected up the diagonal lines to create a kind of 3D effect. You filled it in with a solid color, and now you're using the dust brush to kind of erase away the bottom, creating this feeling of depth.
Yep, exactly.
Perfect.
Well done. Actually, what I should have told you to do is add a mask layer. So I was just doing it off there because I forgot. But if you click on the layer thumbnail and select mask, it will bring up a mask layer, which is a layer you can erase on without permanently damaging the layer you're erasing on. So I could now erase this bit, and then actually I can clear that and get rid of it without affecting that letter. But I might as well just continue, as I forgot to do that. That's why you need to get into good habits, which I obviously haven't got into, because like you don't want to like go, oh, I don't want to erase that a bit, and then you have to just color it all in again. So masks are a good way for good non-destructive way of doing erasing.
I get into bad habits when I don't talk to Lisa Glantz for a little while. she normally whips us into shape, doesn't she? With like, I know, being a bit more organized.
Okay, so just about there on that, and I'd probably now get. Still got the chalk brush, but I just sort of. Oh, bring it down a bit. Oh, I'm still doing the mask. Hang on. I'm squeezing those together to apply the mask, so I can now draw it. No, but I'm just going over the sort of corners to highlight those a bit, just so we can see where the edges are. Okay, and just one more thing I'm going to do on this is using the stipple shader brush, which is a time saver for not having to do loads of dots together. I'm going to choose a red that I've chosen for today. I don't think it's official St. George's Day red. It's just a red I liked. And I'm just going to do a little bit at the bottom, sort of fading up. There we go. And then I'm going to go back to the chalk brush and just on its side, just put a little bit of a highlight at the top. Gently adding that to the top left-hand corner. Oh, and a bit around here as well. Okay, so that is our happy now done. So now we can move on to George is. So let's select a new layer. And the same sort of thing applies here, but we're going to be filling the letters rather than making an outline. So again, I sort of make the brush fairly big, but I sort of just think about getting stuff down sort of not quickly, but roughly, because like I said, you want to see that it's looking okay together, the letters, before you go in and really neaten it up, because you don't want to spend loads of time on one letter only to realize that it's wrong, or it's not, it needs tweaking too much, and then you spend more time tweaking it. And a bit like how artists, painters, they don't just paint really like the finished looking thing. It's just laying down a load of different strokes and colors, and it doesn't look like anything at first, but it's just about getting those foundations down. And then what I'm going to do is just make it a little bit bigger, the brush, and just quickly go over it and fill it in, and just then using the razor just to neaten up some of those edges, make it a bit more refined. And it makes it, once you've filled it in, it just makes it easier to see if the letter's balanced, it's looking the same sort of weight all the way around, especially on a curve like a letter like this, it's a bit harder. So having it all filled in makes it easier on your eye to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I do love the texture on these brushes, by the way.
I know
they're quite fun.
It's good to have the sort of contrast between like this one and the freestyler one, which is a bit more cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfectly clean, but actually, I'm going to do the O first, so then I can butt the E up near it. So the O, I'm going to turn into a shield in sort of St. George and the Dragon style-y. So actually, with this one, I'm just going to roughly draw the oval and then hold my finger there, and then it will draw me a nice oval for me. I can actually edit the shape as well, which I can bring on this side and bring at the bottom a bit. It's quite. I still find it hard drawing O's that are actually properly symmetrical. So sometimes I use the helpful things that Procreate provides to do that. And so I'm just going to fill this one in because it's going to be a shield.
I was going to say that's an unusual O.
Yeah. So again, I'm just using the grids to construct my letter. If you don't know about the letter E, the central part is much smaller than the other top and bottom parts. So that comes in a bit from where you think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, are there any other things like that? I know you often talk about how the bottom of NS is a little bit bigger than the top as well to help balance it optically.
Yeah, there's that. The G goes below. If you look on the G, you can see that the bottom goes below the line there. So, and also the top. So any circular one, because it's loses space around this sort of area, has to go up a bit to make it balance. Square letters like an E lay on the line. Triangle letters like an A, if it's got a point, goes above the line, but the base of it goes on the line. But if it's got a flat top A, it just goes up to the line. So it's about balancing the optics of letters, because it's not about actually does it measure right. It's actually about what does it look like for your eye. Does it look balanced? And that's the same when it comes to spacing. Does it look well spaced? And I suppose the more you do it, the better you get at doing it.
Perfect. Yeah, tons of tips there. It's so subtle often, isn't it? It's like that G only just goes below the baseline, but it makes all the difference, and it looks quite odd if you don't do it.
Yeah. So I'm just doing it R here. And sometimes actually, rather than drawing this bit first, you can just sometimes just fill it all in and then erase it out if that's easier. And down the bottom, I'm going to give it a little kick out just as added interest. And I suppose it could be like a bit end of a sword. It's slightly spiky. Pointed.
Yeah, that's quite nice detail.
And it's like, these letters look quite rough, but then once you start, erasing the edges and making them a bit neater, it looks much better. So, don't worry if you think, oh, it looks rubbish. You can just go back in there and just start refining it and making it look a bit better. Just raising the, I like to call it the window. It's not the technical term, but you're just trying to get a balance between all the sides being very much equal around it. So that will do for now. And then actually to save on time, I will grab the G over here by using the selection tool And if I swipe down with 3 fingers, I can then press duplicate, and it will duplicate a version of that G. It's not going to be, the problem is when you resize something, you still have to tweak it a bit, because otherwise it loses its symmetry and it's squashed in certain areas. But I can get the rough idea down. Normally I draw the G just from scratch, because otherwise you want it to look different from that G, so it doesn't look like a duplicate of it. But as we're rushing through this, I'm just going to squeeze those layers together to join them so they're all one thing.
Amazing. By the way, if I went a bit quiet there, I have a golden retriever puppy barking like crazy downstairs, so I kind of get myself on mute while you're working. No
worries. I'm just dog proofing the garden at the moment. We're hoping of getting a cocker spaniel not after the summer. So we've got a lot of holes to cover up so it doesn't escape. Okay. We're nearly done with those letters. Just got the S to do, which is always fun in a it's tricky kind of way. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I ever get an S right the first time. It's always either falling backwards or falling forwards. But what's great about this is that you can select it and move it. So so I'm just going to draw around the lines of the letter builder, which is helpful when it's the S.
Well, no pressure, Ian. There's only hundreds of people here watching live.
I try not to think about that.
So, I'm actually, while you do this, I'm going to start picking out some questions, because I know you said you were kindly happy to answer questions as we went. Yeah, I'm going to go through. I won't distract you while you do the S there.
It's fine. It's fine. It's a good challenge to try and draw an S while answering questions.
I would say to everyone watching live, click on the Ask a Question box just below this live stream and do submit your question there, or upvote any questions that you'd like to see us answer. But it's a great opportunity to pick Ian's brain and get advice, get your question answered by a really, really experienced lettering artist. I can see a non-lettering related one, but we have a few questions about the old brush set. It will be updated in your account if you already own it. But we also have Will saying, when I import the new set into Procreate, will it overwrite the old ones or create a new set?
It will create a new set. So I've included just like it has individual brushes and the brush set. So you could just install just that brush and then drag it into your folder you've already got in case you've tweaked some of the brushes. Sometimes people who have a faint idea of the settings, you might want to change the streamline to make the curve smoother. Then you can just drag it in there and not affect the other brushes. So, or you can just install a whole brush set and there'll be a duplicate of the chalk brushes, just one with the new brush, one without it.
Perfect. Good to know. Hopefully that helps, Will. We also had a question from Natasha asking, how do you get the letter builder guides to fit inside an area like this? Are you warping it or distorting it or something?
So Stefan Koons, who helped me build Letter and Grid Builder, you might know him, another fabulous lettering artist. He, on his YouTube channel, has a series of letter and grid builder tutorials on especially how to fit the letter builder grids into the grid builder grids. So I usually use the warp tool. So I would draw out the grids and then I would use the advanced. Let me have a look. So on the bottom here, we've got the word warp. Click on that and then advanced mesh. And then I would drag those up and down to squeeze it and adjust it to fit. So it's just a case of sort of tweaking each of these little things to make them fit. I would love it if there was technology out there that meant that they would just automatically fit, but unfortunately we can't. So yes, it's just a case of sort of drawing them out and then sort of tweaking them. But yeah, do go and check out some of those tutorials that Stefan has specifically put up there for those questions about how to fit them and similar ones to that. So
perfect. Thanks so much. I'm sure the team can link up some of those as well. Sybil asks, is there an Illustrator or Photoshop version of the brushes?
Yes, there are actually. Only for Photoshop and Affinity Designer.
Okay, perfect.
Not for Illustrator. I've never really made any brushes in Illustrator. That's probably why. So it's something I'd like to do. So I won't say it won't ever come out, but I might give it a go one day. Okay, so we've done our letters roughly there, and I've I'd go through and just make sure they're really neat. But what I'm going to show you, I'm going to do the shield first. So I'm going to create a new layer in our layers panel with the plus icon. And I'm going to click on it and turn it to a clipping mask. So a clipping mask means that anything I do on this new layer will be restricted to whatsoever is on the layer below. So I'm going to get the red again. And so if I draw over this O, it's only going to appear on the O or the shield, not anywhere else. So I can draw over here and it won't show up. And what's good about it is that you can turn it off and on and you can erase stuff. Otherwise, it will be permanently fixed on there. So what I'm going to do is clear that layer. And I'm going to, now I've done the letters, I'm going to turn off the letter builder. I'll leave the grid there because I'll need it in a minute. I'm just going to draw a St. George's cross on the shield. And what it also does is picks up the texture from below as well. So it looks like it's sort of a bit painted onto the shield. Are
you happy if I keep throwing questions at you, mate?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Cool. So DC regular Sam Diaz asks, hi Ian, I love your work. It's so inspiring. How do you feel about different 3D perspectives in one piece? I mainly try and think about it in terms of like it sort of trying to maybe go to the same point. So if I was doing some 3D below this, it would be like the reverse of this. So it would be 3D would be going, let me just the 3D would be going sort of like if the H there would go in that way, because I think it would start to look weird if it was then. I think it either has to go the same way. It just, you have to think of it in terms of like maybe give yourself a reference point. So for this one, my reference point would be like somewhere in the middle of the R. So everything was sort of roughly head back to this point here. So all those letters would be like that. And this would also sort of, if this was going to be 3D, would also come back to that reference point. It's like the perspective.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of my work follows that sort of theme. But, you know, like Stefan does a lot of twisted 3D stuff as well, which works quite well. But it's just, I think it's keeping with a bit of realism, so it doesn't jar people when people look at it. It doesn't look weird. I think people will see it looks weird, but don't know why it looks weird. So, but just normally pick a reference point sometimes helps. It's called a vanishing point, isn't it? Is that a technical term?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so these letters.
Learn the rules before you break them.
Yes. So with these letters, I'm going to make them beveled. That's the right one. I was lost from it. So I'm going to pick the dust one again, and this time I'm going to remember and I'm going to click on it and select mask. So I can, because I'm going to erase stuff, and then I'm going to fill it back in, and you'll see why in a minute. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the eraser tool. I've got the dust tool. I'm going to put the pencil back on the normal brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, hang on, let's turn off grid builder in it. I'm going to go over some of the areas just and darken it subtly. It's going to sort of fade out. So I'm just gently going over it, and then a bit deeper where it gets to the center, like that. And then what I'm going to do is go back to the chalk brush on my paintbrush, and then I can unerase the bits I've raised to give it a bit of a sharper edge to it there. And then it sort of gives it, I'll do a bit more at the bottom, and it gives it this sort of subtle bevelly looking effect. I thought, that's sort of something that, thinking about when St. George would have been around is, sort of chiseled stone sort of era. Well, there's an era of chiseled stone, but so I do that.
Still a remarkable number of monuments and architecture in the UK. I always have it if I have American friends over. They can't believe the age of some of our buildings and ruins and so
fascinated. On. Castles, they love a castle.
Who doesn't?
I know, And so, I remember someone asked me whether I had a castle. Like it was part of like being British. You had you got to give it a castle.
I've been round Ian's house and met his family. I can confirm he does live in a castle. It's got a moat and everything.
So I'm just going over. So for this one, I'm doing sort of like bits there. Like, say if the light's coming from over on the top left, it's just creating a shadow on the right and sort of bottom of the letter. But I'm just subtly going over it. The good thing is using a mask is that you don't have to worry if you go over the edge or something. And then just going from there to the paintbrush to, I'm not actually painting, I'm just unerasing the stuff I've erased to give it a bit of a sharper line, because when you're chiseling something, not that I chisel anything, but it whether it's in, chiseled inwards or outwards, it's normally a point to it. But it's just really subtle, and it just gives it, it takes some normal flat text and just, raises it up a bit.
I see this so rarely. I don't know what it is. This effect, I see 3D lettering effects and drop shadows and stuff all the time. But the effect you're showing here, I basically never see it.
I think it can go quite quickly too far with like bevel emboss in Photoshop. It's not, you add it and it looks quite, I don't know. I remember back to my early design days and it was quite a cheesy effect back then. And I think with this one, it's quite subtle. It's not like a really emphasized one. You're just doing a little bit, and it only needs a little bit really. Otherwise it's just maybe too much.
Yeah, it is great though. And people in the chat right now are just saying they love the effect. So there you go. I think you need to copyright it.
Saying that, I've done like a skateboard with a much more highlighted bevel effect, but I think it's different from the bevel effect you get on the computer, I think, in Photoshop and stuff. So we nearly done. Oh, what's that? So I just, and again, you're just doing it to see what looks right. As you see, I press harder nearer the center to give it a little bit darker. And then go over it again. And it just, that sharpness of the line just sort of finishes it off. And the thing was, when you got texture, you don't have to be as neat, I think, because it just adds to the effect.
Yeah, it gives you that artistic license.
Yeah, which is good for me because I'm not a perfectionist.
I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, and then I'll just do the little.
What was it
mark.
done deliberately around the bottom of the S there? How the bevel line doesn't connect? There's a kind of gap between them. It creates this like
I should have
weaving effect. It's pretty cool.
Normally, I try and actually finish it so it doesn't, and I don't have to worry about that. So it finishes there, and then goes off on something else. It should, it should be like the one just above it over here. I say I keep pointing, and I realise my pencil's not on the screen, but I normally have a gap between where the bevels are, so they don't join up, like you sort of see on the E, and the G sort of stops before it hits the other one. So, and one last thing I do is just going to get the pencil brush back and just raise some bits on the shield so it looks a bit sort of a bit worn, like it's a bit tarnished. And then the last thing I am going to do is I'm going to add a new layer below the word George's with the pencil brush and a red color. And what I'm going to do is just create a quick sort of drop shadow effect where everything to the right and the bottom of the letter is going to show. So right and underneath like that, and it just adds to. It's just trying to bring in some color, because obviously the theme is red, white, and I suppose black from the blackboard. But this just helps tie it in a bit more.
It's actually amazingly versatile. It kind of goes beyond just being a chalk brush set, because arguably this, it's not even the chalkiest design I've ever seen you do. It just looks really beautiful and textured.
Yeah, and when you're doing chalk on an actual chalkboard, it's a lot bigger, and so it's when you're not normally standing looking right at the chalk, so it was adjusting the textures, sort of a bit like the optical thing with the lettering. It's adjusting the textures so they are chalk textures, but can be readable as well, because chalk can be quite flaky at times. So it's just getting that sort of happy medium. There we go. I usually forget stuff, but so there's George's. And the same thing would happen with St. Here's the St. I did earlier, which is just the same style done. But I've realised that actually the shadow is on the wrong side, so don't make my mistake there. It's it should be on the other side of the letter. Anyway, what I'm going to do is, and what I should have done is made the R a little bit smaller so I could put it in there. But what we'll do is just get happy and move that up a bit. There we go, and then we can move the St. up. And then we are going to focus on the last word, which shouldn't take as long because it's written in script. So if I bring up Grid Builder again, I'm going to use Stefan's chalk brush I'm very thankful for Stefan for providing 2 brushes for this kit, which work really well. As the thing is, you don't get chalk brushes, but it just works so well in a chalk set. And I think if there was in a real world a chalk brush, it would be like this, if you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. Because
well, you do get liquid chalk.
You do get liquid chalk. I'm just wondering whether you get a brush with it. Because like a chalk, if you Google chalk brush, you get a furniture paintbrush, which is for chalk paint.
Right.
Which I don't think is the greatest for doing script right, but this is what it would look like in a real world, I think.
I'm sure if anyone could make one, it's you, the man who's injected ink into an aubergine or a chili.
Yes.
Do you mind if I throw another question at you?
Yeah, sure.
So this one's from Kiki, otherwise known as Kikigraphy, if I can say that right. And Kiki asks, "Hi Ian, how do you balance having lots of different types of fonts in your work? I've heard that 2 to 3 fonts is pretty much the limit for lettering pieces, but in yours, you often have a lot more. How do you keep it all balanced?" It is true. You tend to go quite busy, but I completely agree. You always retain balance. How do you do it?
If you actually look at it, there isn't actually, in terms of like font families, as in, I suppose font styles, as in terms of like sans serif or script and stuff like that. In this one, the sort of basic structure of letters, we've got George, which is slightly serif style, but it's only slightly, and so you've got 2 sans serif ones and then a script. So like you're saying, I can try and keep it to a minimum of like 2, maybe 3, because otherwise it does get a bit too busy. But then saying that, when I'm doing a freestyler pack of stuff, everything is completely different. So I think it's like you either have a few, like 2 or 3, or you go full out and just everything is different.
You're like deliberately chaotic.
And it's when it's in the middle and there's just a bit too much. Like, you know, the George is a slight serif one, but it's so slight it looks like a sans serif as well. Whereas if you do like sans serif and then you do serif, really like maybe, because serif has got more of a serious edge to it. You sort of got like unserious, serious, and something else. So it's just trying to balance them, or whether the word, sometimes I actually just look at the word and what that feels like. So for me, day, St. George's Day feels like a script font. It's just something that feels right to me. And like George's, I look at him as a character, or not character, as a person. And, it talks about him being a knight and stuff like that. Or, whether that's true, I don't know if he is, but the stories of him of being a knight means that actually, okay, what typeface looks like a knight's typeface. And for me, it's more of this sort of rugged, slightly serif, chiseled look. And then the word happy is just like, for me, is always quite a simplistic sans serif one. So thinking about what the emotions bring up with the words sometimes help you to distinguish what style of lettering to choose.
I've noticed as well, it's quite rare that you would end on a more serious font. Quite often a script seems to really round off a composition quite nicely.
Yes, or I sometimes do it in the middle. I suppose it depends how you're going to balance it. So for me, this seemed to work well with the script at the end. Sometimes I'd start with a sans serif, have the script across the middle, and then finish it with another sans serif. So, but I didn't think George looked good in a script. It didn't have enough. Like the word George sort of, I'm going to add a bit of shadow in a minute to make day slightly less prominent. But George needed to be the main thing. And sometimes actually bold creates that essence of being important. So going back to this, I've done that script thing, but I'm going to because this is quite solid, I'm going to color it in as well. So I'm going to just remove a bit of the texture by using the pencil brush. But I'm also, with my letters, I like having like quite a thick script. I know some people like thin scripts, but for me, I like having a thick script. So I draw out my letters with that brush because it's got a really good script writing abilities. But then what I do is I make the bottoms a bit thicker. It's a bit like the font the honest script we did with you guys. I just prefer a slightly thicker script, but it's really hard to draw or really hard to write with keeping that weight all the way under the bottom and back up again, and then let it go. So I just draw it like in my normal calligraphy style, and then I go over and I just increase the weight across the bottom of it.
Is that like the bowl? It's called.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
I keep learning the anatomy of type, and I keep forgetting it. It's probably because I don't often have to recall. It's only on stuff like this I have to recall it, and so I don't seem to retain it enough.
Yeah, this is looking nice though, and it is very balanced. A lot of people have noted that.
Thank you. So I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do to make it less prominent, because it actually at the moment it sort of stands out too much against the George for some reason. So what I'm going to do, let's turn off the grid builder, is I'm going to select an eraser and I'm going to select the dust one again, make it a bit bigger. And then what I'm going to do is make it darken. Let's not make the mistake again. Let's add a mask to it. And then what I'm going to do, make it look like it's being overlapped by George himself over the lettering. So I'm just going to get the arrow. I'm going to move that up a bit.
That's a really cool technique. So you're erasing rather than adding shadow.
Yeah. So just sort of maybe add a bit more in. You still read it, but it just brings George out a bit more and puts Day back in sort of the background a bit more. So that's it for the lettering. So I try and add a few. I'm not an illustrator, but I try and add a few illustrative elements just to bring it all together. So we are going to add a new layer, select the pencil again. And so actually, when he fought the dragon, he used a spear. So like a long, sharp spear. So I'm just going to draw one of those over here with a sharp point. Like that. And then I'm just going to raise the bottom so it looks like it's coming from underneath. And then what I'm going to do is swipe to left, duplicate, go to the arrow tool again, and just press the button that says flip horizontal. And because we've got snapping on, it should stay in the right line with the other one, hopefully. And roughly in the right place. So there's our spears. And then I thought either side of the word day, we can put some roses. I'm not great at drawing flowers in general, so bear with my poor efforts of a rose, but let's make sure I've made a new layer. Yep. So and also something else is that obviously you can fill objects quite easily by dragging and dropping stuff into it, but the problem with that is it leaves this weird texture around the outside and it's solid, which is not what the sort of texture you're after. So I always try and, even if you have to make the brush really big, if it's a big area, just going over it leaves texture inside it and just adds to the rest of the piece. So, and it doesn't take that much longer just to, do it like that. And then I am going to select, go to value under the color palette, And I'm just going to bring the brightness down a bit and do a bit of detail. That's not dark enough. Sorry, all you floral experts out there. This looks like a rubbish rose, but I'm also going to.
No, I like it.
Brighten it up a bit. Maybe I need a bit more of a creamy color, pinky color, maybe. There we go. Sort of rose-ish. And then maybe actually I will get the eraser tool and just add a bit more texture, a bit more depth to it. There we go. And then I can duplicate that, flip it horizontally, and then bring it over. So it just sort of aligns with day. Actually, maybe move day over a bit. There we go. And then the last thing I want to do is add some leaves just in here, just to fill in that space. Oh.
I can always see you do have a real love for illustrating as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better.
Well, I remember that tiger you did, or it was like a tiger's eye.
Oh yeah, that was
amazing.
Weirdly, my most popular post on. Oh, yeah, I've done it. I wasn't concentrating. My most popular post. Oh, I know.
I've distracted you.
It's right. It's all right because I drew on the layer which had day on it. Oh no, that's not what I want. Let's see. There we go. Back in the game. There we go. Just duplicate that. There we go. And actually, the last thing we can do, I keep saying last thing, but whenever I'm doing chalk work on a chalkboard, there's always like one of the chalks breaks quite considerably. So I'm just going to put sort of like the end of the piece of, oh, not in that color, in white. I'm just going to put some chalk flakes, which come a part of the set, you know, where you put down and like, I've got some chalk up there. You go down, so it just breaks up the chalk at the end. As like
that adds so much.
Yeah, I've completed my thing. And then this one called Sprinkler, which I'm just going to, it's just really subtle, but just going to put around the outside of the text, just as like sort of chalk, dust of the chalk. Just so the darker bits sort of make it stand out a bit. And there we go. We are done, I think, if I spelled it all right.
I'm very impressed. Let's give it up for Ian in the chat, everyone. The master at work, as always. Loved seeing that come together, and incredible composition.
Is there any more questions? I know that was pretty swift.
To be honest, I tried to, tick them off as we went. So thank you so much for your answers and multitasking. But if you check out the chat, Ian, you feel pretty good about yourself because you're getting tons of love. I think everyone really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you everyone for joining today. And I do want to shout out the incredible chalk dust brush kit. We've linked up the Procreate version, but if you use Photoshop or Affinity, you can find versions for that as well as of course the grid builder and letter builder, which should be staples in every single digital lettering artist.
Can I just
arsenal.
put a caveat to the Photoshop and Finish Design that hasn't got the chalk pencil in it yet, just because I'm so much quicker at making brushes in Procreate that I need to still make them in those two applications. But I'm getting right on that. I only just it was this week I got the Procreate one up, so hopefully over the next week or so I'll get the update to the Photoshop and Affinity one for you.
And it is free updates for everyone. So even if you have the older files, don't worry, it's going to show up in your account. Ian, thank you again, mate, and have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone else. I hope to see you soon. I'm sure I'll be back on. I think, back on next month.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it. All right, cool. Take care, buddy. Great to see everyone.